Robert Redford was back in Britain for an appearance on Parkinson that he almost missed. A security guard didn't want to let him into the studios because he didn't have a pass. When he said, "But I'm Robert Redford," the guard answered, "They all say that." And that wasn't the only rough ride that he got on that visit.
I said welcome to you, although you must have thought, actually, that not everybody here welcomed you when you read this extraordinary bitchy article in a newspaper today. I won't even give the writer a name, but it's...
I have a name you can give him.
What's that? It's all based on the thing that you, I suppose, wouldn't give them an interview. It says here, I mean, it's extraordinary, it said that the reason why you don't have any press photographs is you don't want anyone to see how, in the wrong light, his face is a little lumpy these days.
Well, I've taken my lumps, but I don't know. I couldn't understand it. It was like Welcome to London.
Yeah, wasn't it?
Yeah, I couldn't understand. I'd never met the person. I wasn't familiar with the paper. I'm kind of used to those things being done, but not to that degree.
He also says of me that I won't ask the question that millions of viewers, who undoubtedly now are sitting in his back room at home, would like to put, and it's this, and I don't understand it, perhaps you do. Mr. Redford, why is it that you, the actor who projects himself as an established and outcast, as the star who won't toe the line and play the Hollywood game according to studio rules, always cast yourself as a hero in every picture you make, and never in a role that will engender anything less than the audience's total sympathy?
Well, first of all, I never had that option when I first started. When I first started as an actor, I was just an actor for hire, and I had no option as to what roles I could play, really. I didn't choose the roles. I certainly didn't cast myself, otherwise my career would have started a lot longer ago. As far as playing the good guy, I don't think the person who wrote that article researched it very well. I think he let the emotions run the line.
And you've turned down, of course, roles that would, in fact, have enhanced that image of the good guy, haven't you? I mean, you turned down, what, The Graduate, didn't you?
Yes, that's true.
And Love Story.
Yep.
You made a wise choice there, actually, but anyway, we won't talk about that. Also, just one other point before we throw this away. The allegation here, too, in the article is that you don't have a sense of humour at all. You're a very sombre man without humour. And the example here is of a practical joke that Paul Newman played on you, which apparently you did not see the humour of. Now, I know, in fact, the opposite to be true, so could you tell us that story?
The story behind that is that Paul and I have done a couple of films together, and we played jokes on one another, and he's obsessed with racing. And he would get so boring talking about racing that sometimes I just couldn't take it. And so on his 50th birthday in Connecticut, we had homes that weren't so far from each other. I was renting a home in Connecticut, and he had lived there for quite a few years. I found an old wrecked Porsche, 1964 Porsche that had been completely demolished. And so I had the thing wrapped up. I bought it, had it wrapped up, and delivered to his back door as a 50th birthday present. And then walked away from it, and then waited to hear, okay? And he didn't say anything. About 3 weeks later, I came to my house, and in the foyer of the house was this huge package. I mean, huge, really huge. And I opened it, I uncrated it, and it was this gigantic block of metal that had been melted down from an old wrecked car. And so I thought, okay, now I like that. I thought that was really good. So I didn't mention it to him. I couldn't get it out of the house either. And so I just let it sit there for weeks on end. Finally, he couldn't take it, and I would see him from time to time. We'd see each other socially, our families would get together. And finally, he couldn't take it anymore. He said, "Say, you have been to the house." And I said, "I've been to the house." And he said, "Anything different there?" And I said, "No, why?" "Oh, the basement was leaking." And he said, "Nothing else?" I said, No. And it drove him crazy. So he then went to the people who had delivered the thing at some great cost. It cost, like, I think about $75 just to deliver this thing. I then made arrangements to have this wrecking company come and take it out of the house. I then had it melted down further and hired a sculptor to do a piece of garden sculpture and had it delivered back to his garden. As far as I know, that's where it still is now. It may end up as a ring on somebody's finger. But that's the true story behind it. I don't know what...
Let's talk about a little bit about the contradictions that seem to me to be in your story when you look at it. You had what would seem to be a very secure middle-class upbringing, and yet you dropped out of university. Why?
Well, I wasn't a good student, and it seemed like a good reason to drop out. And I was also not interested. I was not ready to be educated, at least in the formal, normal academic manner. I felt that, and I had for some time since I was very young, that I learned more from travel and experience than by sitting in a classroom, particularly in the school system that I was raised in, which was very poor in the state of California. Mm. It was a lower middle class upbringing in an area that wasn't privileged at all, and so there was no real stimulation to my background in education. I spent most of my time looking out windows and doodling and sketching and cutting class and things of that sort. So it was never really meant to be me in the academic institutions. I really was meant to leave it early or start later, so I left it early.
And you went on what one newspaper called a drunken spree, driving around America. Was it very drunken?
Well, it was quite long, quite a few years. There was not any one continual drive I just was in and out of, I was inebriated a few occasions when I was younger, but no more so than anybody my age in that condition. I was not happy in the condition that I grew up in, the environment. It wasn't in an environment, it wasn't Oliver Twist by any means. Yeah. It was an environment that was oppressively conventional and normal to the point of distraction. And I guess I had impulses and desires that wanted to go out and do other things, and I didn't feel that I had the opportunity or the support to do that. And I seemed to be moving in this direction, and the tide seemed to be moving in that direction. It was a place in those days where the ethic was not so much whether you, particularly in athletics, where I centered myself, not so much whether you won or lost, but how you played the game. And I found out that was a false legacy. You had that. You had a very, very strong impression created that life was wonderful. It had a lot to do with growing up in California, where the sun did always shine. Yeah. And there was this tremendous post-war boom that was going on that had this multiplication of appliance stores and fast food chains and supermarkets, and all this thrust towards centralization and clutter. And there wasn't, for me, at that age, much of a sign of real quality of life until I moved outside into the mountains or the desert. And so I wanted to leave.
You in fact, of course, you were down and out in Paris for a while as well, weren't you?
Yes.
Tell us how down and out you were.
Well, I was down. That was about the only thing, by the way, this guy mentions in this article that had a modicum of real truth to it. He talks about standing in manure up to my neck. Now, that's not true. I was up to my waist. It was in a little town called Troyes, just outside of Paris, and I was hitchhiking to the south of France. And it was so cold, I had no way to get warm. I had no place to go. I had very little money, and I was running back and forth on the street corner waiting for a ride, and it didn't come. And it was the middle of the night, and the town had closed up. And finally, I just got tired of running, and I started to get worried that I wasn't going to be able to really get warm. And there, across the street was this mound of manure. And so I went over there and just planted myself in it and stayed there for a while until dawn came and I could go into a pastry shop. And that's what actually happened. But needless to say, it was tough to get a piece of pastry. Yeah. The time in Paris was, you look back on it in retrospect, you wonder how much of it was romanticized and how much of it was really fact. It seemed to me, at the time was rough, the going was rough, but I don't know how much of that was induced because of the sheer romance of going to Paris, getting out of California, getting out of the United States, and really beginning to feel like I was learning, which I never felt before.
Well, let's move on in your career now to the point where you're making movies, and I suppose the film, in fact, that did make it for you was in fact Butch Cassidy, wasn't it? I mean, that was the film that really started.
Inordinate, yeah. That was the film that went out of whack. I mean, I had made films before. There was one film that was successful before that, in America anyway, but nothing to that degree where it got outsized. That film was a film that, for me, was very comfortable. The studio didn't want me in that film. because I was not known. They were trying to have a star comparable to Paul to be with. And I practically did it for nothing, that film, because I just felt comfortable playing that role. So it was an enjoyable, I probably had more fun making that film than any film that I've made.
Have you got any other films that you've got in the pipeline?
A film called Brubaker, which comes out in June in America, about a prison reform warden. It's too long and complicated probably to go into here, and a film that I directed, the first film that I directed called Ordinary People, which I'm editing right now.
Is that a direction that you more and more want to go into?
Yes,
direction?
I think so.
Really?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. It was very fulfilling, more than I expected. And acting is not going to last forever, if for very long. So.
Well, why shouldn't it last forever?
I just don't think it will. I don't know why, really. I guess I don't have an answer for that. It's just something in me that says I don't think it will. I think I've been treated well by a career, and I've enjoyed it. I think it's time to move on. I don't know when that'll be or to how radical, but I don't think I'll act.
Do you think that actors, like some athletes perhaps, tend to hang on for too long?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah?
Yes, I do. It seems to be an irrevocable situation, something that can't be helped. I think of the athletes in my country. I think of Willie Mays. I think of Joe Louis. I think of Joe Namath. I think of all these, and now Muhammad Ali. It'll be interesting to see what he does. Really wonderful athletes. Very few of them had the disposition to quit when the time was right. Very few people I ever know of have been able to quit when the time was right to quit, and either move on to something else or stop.
Was there an actor that you admire who did quit at the right time, do you think? Oh, you admired for quitting when he was at the top?
Yeah, Jimmy Cagney.
Really?
Jimmy Cagney's the only actor that I can think of who did it right. I have great admiration for him. Not only is a talent, I think he's one of the greatest talents that our country ever produced. As a matter of fact, I patterned the character I played in The Sting after Jimmy Cagney.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And I just admire the fact that he had so much talent, used it wisely, fully, let his work speak for him. I don't think that Jimmy Cagney ever had to do a lot of publicity. I think he let his work speak for him. That's what I believe in doing for myself. I think it's the best spokesman for yourself is your work. If it's like a painting, if you don't understand it, you don't understand it. The artist standing there explaining what the diagonals mean isn't going to help your emotional reaction to the painting. You either respond to a performance on the screen or a film or you don't, and I'm happy to live with that condition and don't feel the need really to explain myself. I don't think Cagney did, and I think his work and his career stands as a testimony to the kind of man he was, and he quit when it was time to quit. I admire that.
Of course, Robert Redford didn't stop acting.